Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare Bala Krishna Krishna Hare Hare Bala Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna Hare Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Krishna Krishna Hare Hare Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama Hare Rama Hare Rama Rama
Hare Krishna, dear devotees, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Welcome to this morning's Srimad Bhagavatam class from Canto 2, Chapter 9, Text 5. We're very fortunate this morning to have His Grace Vishnugada Prabhu to give the class. Hare Krishna Prabhu, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada.
Patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Hare Krishna, thank you.
Hare Krishna.
So we'll chant Jaya Radha Madhava. And if you're in a position, excuse me, where you can unmute yourself, then please do. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari
Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari.
Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari.
Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari.
Gopi Jana Vallabha Giri Baradhari.
Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Giri Baradhari.
Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana.
Yashodanandana Vrajajana Ranjana.
Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana.
Yashodanandana Vrajajana Ranjana.
Jamuna Tira Vanachari.
Jamuna Tira Vanachari.
Jamuna Tira Vanachari.
Yamuna Tira Vanachari.
Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari.
Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari.
Gopi Jana Vallabha Giri Baradhari.
Gopi Jana Vallabha Giri Varadhari.
Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana.
Yashodanandana Vrajajana Ranjana.
Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana.
Yashodanandana Vrajajana Ranjana.
Jamuna Tira Vanachari.
Yamuna Tira Vanachari.
Jamuna Tira Vanachari.
Yamuna Tira Vanachari.
Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari.
Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari.
Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari.
Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari.
Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Paribrajaka Ashtotara Shata Shri Srimad His Divine Grace A.C. Bhakti Vedanta Swami Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Jai.
Jai.
Ananta Koti Vaishnav Vrinda Ki Jai.
Jai.
ISKCON Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai.
Jai.
Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai.
Jai.
Prem Se Kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaur Bhaktivinoda ki jai.
Yay.
Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopal Gopinath Shyam Kund Radha Kund Giri Govardhan ki jai.
Yay.
Vrindavan Dham ki jai.
Yay.
Navadvip Mayapur Dham ki jai.
Yay.
Ganga Mai ki jai.
Yay.
Jamuna Mai ki jai.
Yay.
Tulsi Devi ki jai.
Yay.
Bhakti Devi ki jai.
Yay.
Shamaveta Bhakta Vrinda ki jai.
Yay.
Gaur Prem Anande.
Hari Hari Bo.
All glories to the assembled devotees.
Hare Krishna.
All glories to the assembled devotees.
Hare Krishna.
All glories to the assembled devotees.
Hare Krishna.
All glory to Sri Sri Guru and Sri Gauranga. Hari Hari Bol.
Oh, God.
Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Preshtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Shami Iti Namane. Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Desha Tarine. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 We're reading, studying, and discussing Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 2, Chapter 9, text number 5, answers by citing the Lord's version, I believe.
Yes.
Sa ādi-devo jagatāṁ paro guruḥ svadhiṣṇyam āsthāya sisṛkṣayaikṣata tam nādhyagacchad dṛśam atra sammatāṁ prapañca-nirmāṇa-vidhir yayā bhavet. Sa ādi-devo jagatāṁ paro guruḥ svadhiṣṇyam āsthāya sisṛkṣayaikṣata tam nādhyagacchad dṛśam atra sammatāṁ prapañca-nirmāṇa-vidhir yayā bhavet. Sa ādi-devo jagatāṁ paro guruḥ svadhiṣṇyam āsthāya sisṛkṣayaikṣata tam nādhyagacchad dṛśam atra sammatāṁ prapañca-nirmāṇa-vidhir yayā bhavet. Please chant.
Sa ādi-devo jagatāṁ paro guru svadhiṣṇyam āsthāya sisṛkṣayaikṣata tam nādhyagacchad dṛśam atra sammatāṁ prapañca-nirmāṇa-vidhir yayā bhavet. Hare Krishna.
ādi-devo jagatāṁ paraguru svadhiṣṇyam sisṛkṣayaikṣata tam nādhyagacchad dṛśam atra sammatāṁ prapañca-nirmāṇa-vidhir yayā bhavet. Hare Krishna.
Sa ādi-devo jagatāṁ paro guruḥ svadhiṣṇyam āsthāya sisṛkṣayaikṣata tam nādhyagacchad dṛśam atra sammatāṁ prapañca-nirmāṇa-vidhir yayā bhavet. Hare Krishna.
Narvanga Sundar, can you chant?
Hare Krishna Prabhu. ādi-devo jagatāṁ paro guru svadhiṣṇyam āsthāya sisṛkṣayaikṣata tam nādhyagacchad dṛśam atra sammatāṁ prapañca-nirmāṇa-vidhir yayā bhavet. Hare Krishna.
Good, well done. Sa he ādi-deva the first demigod, jagatāṁ, of the universe, para, supreme, guru, spiritual master, svadhiṣṇyam, his lotus seat, āsthāya, to find the source of it, sisṛkṣayaikṣata, for the matter of creating the universal affairs. Aikshata, began to think, tam, in that matter, na, could not, nādhyagacchad, understand, dṛśam, the direction, atra, therein, sammatāṁ, just the proper way, prapañca, material, nirmāṇa, construction, vidhir, process, yayā, as much as, bhavet, should be. Translation. Lord Brahmā, the first spiritual master, supreme in the universe, could not trace out the source of his lotus seat. And while thinking of creating the material world, he could not understand the proper direction for such creative work, nor could he find out the process for such creation. Purport. This verse is the prelude for explaining the transcendental nature of the form and the abode of the Lord. In the beginning of Srimad Bhagavatam, it has already been said that the Supreme Absolute Truth exists in his own abode without any touch of the deluding energy. Therefore, the kingdom of God is not a myth, but factually a different and transcendental sphere of planets known as the Vaikunthas. This will also be explained in this chapter. Such knowledge of the spiritual sky, far above the material sky and its paraphernalia, can be known only by dint of devotional service or bhakti yoga. The power of creation by Lord Brahmā was also achieved by bhakti yoga. Brahmaji was bewildered in the matter of creation, and he could not even trace out the source of his own existence. But all this knowledge was fully achieved by him through the medium of bhakti yoga. By bhakti yoga, one can know the Lord, and by knowing the Lord as the Supreme, one is able to know everything else. One who knows the Supreme knows everything else. That is the version of all the Vedas. Even the first spiritual master of the universe was enlightened by the grace of the Lord. So who else can attain perfect knowledge of everything without the mercy of the Lord? If anyone desires to seek perfect knowledge of everything, he must seek the mercy of the Lord, and there is no other means. To seek knowledge on the strength of one's personal attempt is a sheer waste of time. Om Ajnana Timirandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Jena Tasmai Shri Gurave Nama Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Jena Bhutale Shayam Rupa Katamayam Dadati Shah Pandantikam Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaur Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Before speaking, I'd like to ask the permission and blessings of all devotees, and particularly those who are senior by age and or advancement in Krishna consciousness. Hare Krishna. Thank you. Lord Brahma, the first spiritual master, supreme in the universe, could not trace out the source of his lotus seed. And while thinking of creating the material world, he could not understand the proper direction for such creative work, nor could he find out the process for such creation. So Srila Prabhupada mentions in the purport that this verse is a prelude for explaining the transcendental nature and form and abode, nature of the form and abode of the Lord. We'll see in the upcoming verses that Lord Brahma, after performing penances and austerities, Lord Krishna appears to him and gives him a vision of the transcendental world after performing devotional service in bhakti yoga. So Srila Prabhupada makes the point that the spiritual world is not a myth, but is factually a different transcendental sphere of planets. So, of course, there are many myths in the world, especially people like to tell children stories of exotic places, whether it be Neverland, Neverland, or the Big Rock Candy Mountain. There are many such mythical or imagined places in the literature of the world. But this description or the existence of the supreme abode of the Lord is not like those. And that's important for us to think about and realize. Just as the first spiritual master, Lord Brahma, did at the beginning of creation. What did he do? That's elaborately described in the Brahma Samhita. Here it's described in short form, but in the Brahma Samhita, in the beginning verses, you'll find an elaborate description of the meditation in bhakti yoga of Lord Brahma prior to getting the association and darshan appearance, audience of Lord Krishna. So that meditation starts out Sahasrapatram Kamalam Gokulakyam Mahatpatam Tat Karnikaram Tad Dhamma Tadanantangshatam Bhavan. This is Lord Brahma meditating on Sahasrapatram Kamalam. Sahasrapatra means 1,000 petals, and Kamalam means lotus. Sahasrapatram Kamalam, Gokulakyam Mahatpadam. And that 1,000-petal lotus is the abode of the Supreme Lord, known as Gokul, Mahatpadam, and that's the greatest abode of all, even beyond the Vaikuntha planets. So he's meditating in this way at the beginning of creation. And also, when we chant and remember the Brahma Samhita and these verses from Srimad Bhagavatam, we can also remember that situation. It's important to remember always that this material world that we find ourselves entangled in is not our permanent, real home. There's another nature that is much more conducive to happiness and peace, but it requires a state of mind called Krishna consciousness. And by Krishna consciousness, if we're in Krishna consciousness at the time of death, then we can be transferred to that transcendental kingdom, also known as the paravyoma. So this concept of the supreme abode of the Lord, also known as Dham, is something that Srila Prabhupada emphasized right in the beginning of the Krishna consciousness movement. For example, in 1944, he started a magazine. And what was that magazine called? As you know, Back to Godhead.
Back to Godhead.
Back to Godhead. That's back to the spiritual world, our ultimate, real home and resting place. And then he wrote the first book that he published was called, if you remember, in India, before coming to the United States, there's one small book. What was that called? I'm asking for a response here.
Prabhu, is it the light of the Bhagavat?
Good guess, but no. It's a
Oh,
good guess. Any other?
before he came to America, you said, Prabhu?
Yes.
Bhagavat. No, wait, was it Bhagavad Gita? The Bhagavatam?
Well, he did publish the Srimad Bhagavatam, but even before the Srimad Bhagavatam, there was a small book that he printed.
Huh.
It's called Easy Journey to Other Planets.
Well, that was done in India. I had no idea.
Yeah.
I thought it was in the US.
Well, it was reprinted in the US, but
Okay.
it was first done in India. And I thought I could read a few paragraphs from that because it's on this particular subject, the beginning of that book. It's differentiating the myth of the spiritual world. The dissipating the myth, the idea that the spiritual world is a myth. So this is from the first chapter of the book, Easy Journey to Other Planets. And the first chapter is called Anti-Material Worlds. Materialistic science may one day finally discover the eternal anti-material world, which has for so long been unknown to the wranglers of gross materialism. Regarding the scientists' present conception of antimatter, the Times of India, October 27th, 1959, published the following news release. Here it is. Here's the news release. Two American atomic scientists were awarded the 1959 Nobel Physics Prize today for the discovery of the antiproton, proving that matter exists in two forms, as particles and antiparticles. They are Italian-born Dr. Emilio Segre and Dr. Owen Chamberlain. According to one of the fundamental assumptions of this new theory, there may exist another world or an anti-world built up of antimatter. This anti-material world would consist of atomic and subatomic particles spinning in reverse orbits to those of the world we know. If these two worlds should ever clash, they would both be annihilated in one blinding flash. That's the end of the news release about the Nobel Prize winners who won the Nobel Prize on their theory that there's another world, an anti-material world. So Srila Prabhupada continues. He says, in this statement, the following propositions are put forward. One, there is an anti-material atom or particle which is made up of the anti-qualities of the material atoms. Two, there is another world besides this material world of which we have only limited experience of that other world. And three, the anti-material and material worlds may clash at a certain period and may annihilate one another. Then he says, out of these three items, we, the students of theistic science, can fully agree with items 1 and 2. But we can agree with item 3 only within the limited scientific definition of antimatter. The definition lies in the fact that the scientist's conception of antimatter extends only to another variety of material energy, whereas the real antimatter must be entirely antimaterial. Matter as it is constituted is subjected to annihilation. But antimatter, if it is to be free from all material symptoms, must also be free from annihilation by its very nature. If matter is destructible, antimatter must be indestructible. We shall try to discuss these propositions from the angle of the authentic scriptural vision. So what do you think about that? Any comments or reactions to that? Did you?
Hare Krishna. I wasn't surprised to hear what your Prabhupada said, especially that a student of theistic science, that they wouldn't go along with the third proposal, that the matter and antimatter coming close would annihilate each other. That was a total assumption on the part of the scientists. So
Yes.
that was one point.
Yes.
Maybe
Yes.
the boys have other things to say. So
Yeah, sure. Any other observations, comments on this? That's just the treatise goes on in that book. It's a very enlightening treatment of the idea of there being a spiritual world, as we're focusing on in this verse. And as Parikshit Prabhu wisely commented, because the material scientists, not the spiritual scientists, but the material scientists, they only have a material conception. So they had to make the anti-material world and the anti-material particles had to have material qualities, because that's their limit of understanding. But the Vedas, and here in this verse also, gives us understanding that there are anti-material qualities and anti-material atoms. The anti-material atom that we're all familiar with is called the jiva. And that's what differentiates material bodies, dead bodies, from living bodies. And Krishna calls that two kinds of matter in this world, just like here we're talking about antimatter and matter. Krishna describes it as para prakriti and apara prakriti. He describes that in the 7th chapter of Bhagavad Gita. Bhumir apo nalo vayu kam mano buddhirevacha ahankara iti yamme bhinna prakritir ashtada. These are my earth, water, fire, air, ether, mind, intelligence, and false ego. These are my separated apara, separated material energies. And then he says, apare yasitastvanyam prakritim vidhime param jiva bhuta mahabaho yayedham dharyate jagat. But besides these material atoms, material substances, there's another energy, para-prakriti, param, and that's the living entity, the jiva soul. So that's spiritual in quality, and the whole spiritual world is made up of those conscious spiritual substances. Therefore, in the beginning of Lord Brahma's prayers, after he has the audience of Lord Krishna, he says, Chintamani prakara sadmasu kalpavrikshalakṣavrite susurabhira bipalyantam. That spiritual world is Chintamani. It's made up, the substance, the substrate of it is all spiritual gems, fully conscious, just as the jiva is conscious. But our consciousness becomes covered because we tend to be overwhelmed by illusion. But we can free ourselves from illusion by just discussing this whole issue. This is very kind of Lord Krishna. By discussing these issues and these points, then Krishna can show his mercy to us, and deliver us from our deluding ignorance. So here, and also one other point in this little brief paragraph that I read from the Easy Journey to Other Planets, the scientists were talking about if the two worlds collide, then there'll be a huge explosion, which Srila Prabhupada pointed out that we don't agree with that. The theists don't agree with that. Is there any evidence that we might have that the two worlds, when they come together, there's not a explosion? Srila Prabhupada talks about it later in the Easy Journey, but I'm asking our august audience here today, can you think of any situation where the two worlds come together and there's no explosion?
Even prior to that, Prabhu, why would the two worlds come together in the first place? That's obviously an assumption on their part.
Yes, that's true. But they do come together. We know that. So I'm asking you to consider that.
Well, our makeup is actually like that. Even now.
Yes.
Our very makeup, the body is material, the soul is spiritual. And we're in one constitution.
Yes. So there's the spiritual atom and the material atom right side by side. Yes. And material atoms. Yeah, the jivatma has all the qualities of God, of the spirit, complete spirit, but it's minute in quantity. And because it's small, because we're small in our consciousness, our consciousness, that spiritual quality tends to get covered. And there's another example I was thinking of, and I don't want to belabor the point, but when Lord Krishna descends into this material world, he brings the spiritual world with him to this planet. And that's we call it Goloka Vrindavan. It becomes Gokula Vrindavan here on this earth planet. Sometimes it's described. And at that time, there's no gigantic explosion, but there is a difference that happens. It's an explosion of, or you could call it an explosion of spiritual consciousness, a revival of spiritual consciousness among the living entities here. Does that make sense? I hope so. Anyway, I'm not getting any response here.
Yes,
All right.
yes.
Okay, so yeah, Krishna comes, Lord Chaitanya comes, different avatars come for that particular purpose. They're bringing with them their spiritual qualities, their spiritual and their spiritual abodes as well. So then, in this purport also, Srila Prabhupada is explaining that this is the beginning, the prelude to Lord Brahma being able to realize the existence of the spiritual world. And there are other times within the Vedic literature where the nature of the spiritual world is revealed to devotees. Maybe you remember some of them. And interestingly, that was, of course, in all circumstances, it's through the activities of pure bhakti. But if we are aware of these things, we should know that the nature of the spiritual world can also be revealed to us, even in our current situation on this, in this material body. Can anyone think of any examples of the spiritual world being revealed to devotees on this earth planet?
Dhruva-loka.
What's that?
Dhruva-loka.
Dhruva-loka. Sure.
But it didn't come to us directly. It's in the Shastra. But yeah, Dhruva-loka, which is actually
I was thinking about that. Good point, Parikshit Prabhu. So, and the demigods, with their special powers, they can sometimes go to Dhruva-loka, isn't it? On the shore of the ocean of milk, right? Where sisṛkṣayaikṣata Vishnu, yeah. So then one may think, well, when they go to Dhruva-loka, how come they leave? You follow? Wouldn't it be nice to stay there? But of course, they had their jobs, their day jobs. But anyway, Dhruva-loka.
The other point, Prabhu, is that they go for a particular cause. They're in distress. They go there because they're in distress. They want the distress relieved, and once they get that, then they go back. Yeah,
but my question would be, I got that. But why don't they just stay there? But I understand that they have jobs to do, but still, it's the spiritual world.
No, they may become a Mishra Bhakti.
Yeah.
Underlying. They like their own control in their own abodes in the heavenly planets.
Okay, in their own lokas, yeah.
They go to Dhruva-loka, they have to give that up.
Yeah. And then some other instances that are given in the scriptures of the Srimad Bhagavatam, of Srimad Bhagavatam, of devotees getting a vision of the spiritual world when, after the Govardhan Puja celebration, then shortly thereafter there was an Ekadashi and Dvadashi, and Nanda Maharaj at that time, he took his bath early in the morning before sunrise, and there was some question whether it was the proper time for taking bath. So the servants of Varuna, who was the Lord of Waters, arrested Nanda Maharaj and brought him to Varuna's kingdom, Varuna's place. And so after it was discovered that Nanda Maharaj didn't come out of the water after taking bath, there was some commotion. And the cowherd men who were with Lord Krishna, who were with Nanda Maharaj, they appealed to Lord Krishna. So Lord Krishna went there to the kingdom of Varuna to rescue his father, Nanda Maharaj. And when he arrived at the kingdom, Varuna, who was in great opulence, you can imagine, the Lord of all the waters, a wonderful palace bedecked with jewels and incredible furniture and riches. So when Lord Krishna arrived there, Varuna Dev offered his obeisances to Lord Krishna and was very, very respectful. And Nanda Maharaj happened to be there because he had been arrested. But when he arrived, Varuna had realized that this was a big mistake on the part of his servants. And so he gave Nanda Maharaj a very nice seat, actually seated him on a throne. But Lord Krishna, when he arrived, Varuna Dev then offered prayers to Krishna and asked his forgiveness for his servants who had arrested his father. And he glorified Lord Krishna as the Supreme Lord. So anyway, what happened was then Lord Krishna brought Nanda Maharaj back to Vrindavan, and Nanda Maharaj, he was a little bit overwhelmed by the whole experience. you can imagine. But he related how he was so surprised that Varunadeva, this important demigod, had been so respectful to his son. So he was speculating perhaps his son is some kind of important demigod in reality. And so then the cowherd men who heard this discussion or heard the story of what happened in Varunadev's kingdom, they started thinking, well, not only he might be the supreme, a great demigod, he might be the supreme personality of Godhead. And if he's the supreme personality of Godhead, well, I wonder what our destination will be after this life. So they began thinking like that. And what happened is, Lord Krishna, understanding their mentality, what their desire was, they wanted to know what is their situation at the end of this life. He showed them, he gave them a vision of the spiritual world with all the Vaikuntha planets and the supreme planet, and assured them that that is their destination in their after they're leaving this this world. You remember that? Very interesting pastime.
Yeah.
But that's not. Go ahead. Go ahead.
No, I just you said yes. I remember that I said yeah.
Yeah. And there was another time when the spiritual world was revealed by the grace of Lord Krishna, when Akura was bringing Lord Krishna back to Mathura from Dwaraka, from Vrindavan. He stopped on the way and took bath. And Krishna and Balaram were still on his chariot. But while he was in the water, he saw Krishna and Balaram, and then they became Mahavishnu and Sheshanag, or Vishnu and Sheshanag. And all the different great sages and saints were offering obeisances to them. And he was shocked. So Srila Prabhupada mentions that he was getting a vision, a kurara, of the spiritual world. And as a result of that, he offered wonderful prayers to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna. And by dint of those prayers, it said that he is the perfection of praying. And there's another instance. Well, there are other instances. Perhaps you remember that there's a prayer by Bhaktivinoda Thakur called Shuddha Bhakata. Shuddha Bhakata describes the activities of a pure devotee in their daily activities. So, in one line, Bhaktivinoda Thakur says, it's Bengali, Je dina grihe bhajana deki grihete goloka bhai. Je dina grihe, one day in my house, grihe, bhajana deki, when I was doing my bhajan, my devotional service, grihete goloka bhai. My house was transformed into Goloka Vrindavan. So Bhaktivinoda Thakur is seeing his house becoming the supreme abode. Similarly, if one engages in devotional service with no other desire other than to please Krishna, that place becomes the spiritual world, like Bhaktivinoda Thakur is saying. Does that make sense? Okay, I hope so.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Then the other part of this purport that I thought was, I mean, there's all these interesting points, but Srila Prabhupada is describing that Lord Brahmā is, by dint of bhakti yoga, because he knows Krishna, he's understood to know everything. One is able to know everything. One who knows the Supreme knows everything else. That is the version of the Vedas. The Vedic aphorism from the Mundaka Upanishad is Yasmin Vigyate Sarvam Eva Vigyatam. One who knows Krishna knows everything. So one could wonder, what does that really mean? I know everything. Does that mean you can, if somebody challenges you with a long arithmetic problem, that you can know immediately what it is? Or what is the nature of that knowing everything, as mentioned here in the purport? So I'm asking you, what is your understanding of that? No, the knowledge, if you know Krishna, you know everything.
It says the ultimate.
Yes? So is that what it means?
If you know the ultimate, everything else is a subset of the ultimate. That's
Okay.
the way I see it.
Any other Mother Anasuya, you're quiet today. Or maybe you have other things. You're at the office, I don't know. Sarvanga Sudara, dear Krishna Prabhu.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, please accept my humble obeisances, all glories to Prabhupada. I was thinking like, as Parikshit Prabhu mentioned, like Krishna is the ultimate and we are his servants. So if we understand this is what like I always heard about understanding the like once we understand this, we understand everything. That's like this is the thing that I hear always.
Okay, good. Yeah, the aphorism or the Srimad Bhagavatam says, Vasudeva para Veda. The goal of knowledge, Veda is the goal of knowledge is to know Krishna. So I looked up in the Veda base on to search using those words, Yasmin Vigyata Sarvamevam Vigyatam Bhavati. So here's some things that Srila Prabhupada said in relation to this particular idea. So this is from Perfect Questions, Perfect Answers. So these things have to be understood. Krishna is the supreme enjoyer. Krishna is the supreme proprietor. And Krishna is the supreme friend. If you know these three things, then your knowledge is full. You do not require to understand anything more. Yasmin vigyate sarvam evam vigyatam bhavati. If you simply understand Krishna by this formula, then your knowledge is complete. You don't require any more knowledge. But people will not agree. Why should Krishna be the proprietor? Hitler should be the proprietor. Nixon should be the proprietor. Yeah, that is going on. Therefore, you are in trouble. But if you understand these three things only, then your knowledge is complete. Okay. Bhagavad Gita, Krishna plainly says, Bhoktaram yagyatapasam sarvalokamaheśwaram suhridam sarvabhutanam kyatvamam shantim richati. So then in a morning walk conversation in Mayapur in April 8th of 1975, this conversation took place. Satsvarup Maharaj, Prabhupada, in one purport in the Bhagavad Gita, you write that a disciple of a bona fide spiritual master is supposed to know everything. Prabhupada, yes, if he follows the spiritual master. Satsvarup. But how could he know? What does he mean? What does that mean? Everything. Prabhupada. Everything means whatever his guru knows. He should know that much. Not like God. Not like God, everything. Within his limit, that's all. If he tries to understand whatever his guru has said, that much is everything. Otherwise, everything does not mean that we know everything like God, like Krishna. That is not possible. If he regularly chants and follows the four regulative principles, follows the orders of the guru, then he knows everything. That's all. You cannot expect anyone to know like Krishna everything. Jayadvaita, Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita that one who knows him knows everything. Prabhupada, yes. Because if he knows that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, then he knows everything. That's all. Not that he should know as Krishna. Yasmin vigyate sarvam evam vigyatam bhavati. If he accepts Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the absolute truth, then he knows everything. That is finished. And of course, we know also the verses from the Bhagavad Gita, which are hinted at here in this purport. Te sam satadajuktanam bhajatam pritipurvakam dadami buddhi yogam tam yena mam upayanti te. So that someone who's constantly devoted, as Prabhupada mentions there, follows the 4 regulative principles, chants 16 rounds, and follows the order of the spiritual master, Krishna within the heart gives them the knowledge, that important knowledge by which they can come to him. This is the important part of knowledge. And we, of course, know the anecdote of the scholar and the boatman. So supposedly this is taking place during the British Raj in India. And a scholar needs to get across the river. So he comes to a boatman. He says, "Can you row me across this river?" "Sure, certainly, certainly." And along their way, they're having a conversation about botany, about physics, about meteorology. And each time the boatman admits that he really doesn't know about those types of scientific understanding. And each time the scholar says, "Well, then your life is 25% wasted, 50% wasted, and 75% wasted." So finally, it happens that a large storm brews suddenly, happens sometimes on the water, and waves come, and the boat is in jeopardy of capsizing. So the boatman advises the scholar, "It's time, we have to abandon ship because it's going to go under. It'll take us under too." And the boatman says, "Do you know how to swim?" And the scholar says, "No, I don't, never learned how to swim." Well, the boatman says, what does he say? What does he say? The boatman say to the scholar?
The whole life is wasted.
100%. Yeah, 100%. So hopefully, reading Srimad Bhagavatam, the Bhagavad Gita, and chanting Hare Krishna, serving, trying to get the mercy of the Supreme Lord, and especially the mercy of your spiritual master. We get the knowledge by which we can cross over the ocean of material existence. Jahad prashade bhai e bhava turiya jai. By your mercy, the mercy of the spiritual master, we can cross over this ocean of suffering and revive our original position back to Godhead. Hare Krishna. We'll do some comments on this verse. Haribol. Questions, comments, corrections.
Thank you very much, Prabhu. Yeah, for giving a wonderful class and also thought-provoking. And of course, the final fable or what you talked about the scientist and then the boatman. That actually, when I was very little, my mom told me the same story. So it's nice to kind of find out.
Oh, really? Your mom knew this story?
Oh, yeah. Oh,
Okay.
yeah. He said, "Oh, if you don't know this, scientists are saying, if you don't know this, then you lost a part of your life." So, and then the storm came, and then the boatman asked him, "Scientist, do you know how to swim?" He said, "No." Then the boatman said, "Then you lost the whole of your life." This is how my mom put it to me.
Yes.
Anyway.
A wise mom. A wise mom.
Anyway, Hare Krishna.
Essential knowledge, and peripheral knowledge. Essential knowledge, to know who we are, who is God, what is our relationship, what is this material. These are the things that, especially Bhagavad Gita tells us, gives us great information. We won't find that information anywhere about,
Yeah.
who we are. That important information is not there, even though there's so much other kinds of knowledge.
Hare Krishna. I have a question. It's like, well, I'll put it in the question form, but it's also in one sense a comment. You said
Okay.
about the businesses, the devotees, glory to the Prabhupada. So when you brought up this example of the scientist that got the Nobel Prize for saying there was matter and then antimatter, and of course, we know now that the last point that he made, Srila Prabhupada disagreed because if we look at antimatter as spiritual, then spiritual does not, the annihilation doesn't happen in the way he was thinking. But my point though is, if that's the reason that matter, according to his assumption, matter and antimatter come together, they'll annihilate each other. And the reason is that he's thinking materially, then I think the whole way of his presentation is flawed. Because if he's calling something antimatter, how can antimatter have material properties?
Yes, that was Srila Prabhupada's point. Exactly. Yes.
Mm. Okay,
So they're
that's why
still
he
trying.
disagrees.
Yeah, they're still trying to understand antimatter from a material standpoint. And it's not possible. So ultimately, the way we can understand is by getting it from the transcendental source
Yeah.
and getting mercy from. Without the mercy of Krishna and the spiritual master, it's not possible to really understand correctly. Yasya deve para bhakti yata deve tata guru kasyati katitahyata prakashante mahatmana. By getting the mercy of the spiritual master and Krishna, then you can understand all these things. But not otherwise, not possible. So we aspiring devotees, we have to beg for mercy every day. Unless we ask for it, we weren't going to get it. Please be merciful and allow me to do service. And it's not an academic exercise. In school, you learn all these facts and then you have to repeat the facts. But Krishna consciousness is not like that. That's Tad-vidhi pranipatena pariprashnena sevaya. There has to be service, a service attitude, a service mentality. And then those imports, all those information, the realizations come that way. So like Lord Brahma, he was bewildered, but he took his time to focus on remembering Krishna. And then on the strength of Krishna's mercy, Krishna enlightened him how to create the universe.
Yeah. But scientists, especially, the Buddhists need to understand why when Srila Prabhupada gives lectures, and if you don't mind my this comment, that he
Okay.
disproves the things the scientists, or sometimes he bashes them, calls them rascals, because actually they don't have instrumentation to understand how the material world is put together. They really don't. In astronomy, they don't. Their instruments don't come anywhere close. So they start with an assumption, an intelligent guess, and then they go on with that intelligent guess. But if that guess is wrong, then everything else that's built on it is also wrong, which was what in the lecture we were listening to yesterday, the recorded lecture to the Power. But this is what goes on. It's all based on assumption. I've been with them, so I know it for a fact. Nobody has to tell me that. And that's why I want facts. And that's why I'm kind of turned off with science. Personally, I'm very turned off with them. But because it's all based on assumption, and then they put the intelligence to the assumption and try to go on, just like this person that assumed that, oh, there's antimatter, but then he says matter and antimatter come together, they will destroy each other. Total assumption. He has no idea what would happen. So I thank God that I gained the Christian consciousness, because I was steeped in all of these assumptions and firing questions at them. This is assumption. This is assumption. What's fact then? What is fact? You're telling me assumptions. I don't want assumptions. I want facts. So Christian had to put me here, and in the end, it had to put me here, because otherwise I would have been asking all these questions forever. And so fortunately, that's why I'm very thankful to Spiritual Master, for coming to Krishna consciousness. Don't take this lightly, but for somebody that's been around scientists, this is huge. What we have here, this knowledge. Hare Krishna. I just wanted to put it out.
Thank you. It's a very, very heartfelt and wise statements. Thank you. And so, we've got mercy from Krishna, the spiritual master. You've got mercy from Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj, Srila Prabhupada. So we have some hope of understanding what's going on. Otherwise, you can't figure it all out on your own. It doesn't work. Even the scientists can't figure it all out. Not
They
possible.
can't. Yeah, they don't have the instrumentation to give them. And, they want truth. So truth has to come from experiment. Experiment comes from the instruments, and the instruments are limited in how far they go. So what conclusion can they come to? They'll be guessing. They've been groping in the dark forever, and they call it research. Anyway, I don't want to get on my soapbox. I just leave it alone.
That's okay. Thank you. Other statements? Okay. I know it's past 9, so we'll call it that. Thank you very much. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Vancha kalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhyo vacha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha.
Beautiful. Thank you, Prabhu. Thank you, Prabhu. Hare Krishna.